Welcome to Season 8, Episode 9 of 7 Million Bites, a Vietnam podcast. My name is Niall Mackay and I'm your host. I've been living in Vietnam since 2016 and I started this podcast in 2019 to get to know more about the people that are connected to Vietnam, both foreigners and locals and people who live here and live overseas as well. Everyone has a story and I wanted to learn more about that. And my guest today, she is the creative director of the Happievent and the managing founder of Social ChangeMakers. She has spent time studying and living in Europe, but she's born in Vietnam from Hanoi. And she says she's atypical Vietnamese. She's a mixed soul, half traditional, half modern. In this episode, we're going to be talking about her journey, and we're also going to be talking about her social impact journey, from charity on a personal level to philanthropy and seriously building a long-lasting ecosystem, cultivating social changes and greater positive impact in her home country. We've met before online during the lockdown. We did a networking event together, and I've been watching her progress over the last year, putting on some unbelievable events, trying to help change people's lives. So I'm very excited to welcome my guest today is Rosi Happi.
Thank you, Niall, for welcoming me to the podcast, and I'm very excited to be invited to be your guest.
Thank you for joining us. It's been amazing following that journey of yours over the last, how long have you been back? Because you came back to Vietnam from Australia, right?
I came back for a visit in March 2020 for supposedly 2 months holiday only. And then we all know what happened.
Yeah, well, we do. Let's talk about that.
Yes,
We're all heading over. No, so is that what happened? Then you got stuck here?
At the beginning, I got stuck. Social distancing and all of that, but then later on I freed myself from being stuck. I decided I'll leave here now.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's positives have come from this situation over the last couple of years, right? So let's go back and so you studied all over Europe and Australia. So what took you then from Hanoi to that journey?
So from Hanoi I moved with my mom to Saigon first. For personal reason, my parents got divorced, so my mom decided let's move to a different country, different city. Sorry, it's not a different country.
Well, some people say it's a different country.
Yeah, I know, the same country. It's just a pop out. Okay. So we moved to a different city so that she can start new, and Saigon is the hub of industrial and business, and it's like a city of opportunity. So she thought back then this is the place where we can start anew. And that's why we moved to Saigon. And I lived in Saigon, I believe, longer than the time that I was in Hanoi.
Okay, so how old were you when you moved to Saigon?
I was 5 or 6 years old.
Oh, right, so really young then.
Yeah, very small.
So do you consider yourself Saigonese or Hanoi? And what do we call someone from Hanoi?
Hanoian.
Hanoian, is right?
Hanoian, yeah. I had both.
Yeah.
I can still do the northern accent, the Hanoi accent.
Really?
So I still feel Hanoi, but my personality are more the south
Right.
than the north. I lived here longer,
Yeah, I mean, you've lived here most of your life.
Yeah.
Correct. And so one of the things we've talked about this a lot with other guests, so we don't need to go into too much detail, but one of the things that fascinates me about Saigon is how quickly it is developing. I've been here 6 years and I've watched it just dramatically change in front of my eyes. The bridge is about to open, which is to me is mind blowing. Yeah. Landmark 81 didn't exist when I came here. For you then growing up here, how do you take in that, like, just that rapid development of Saigon? What was it like when you were growing up,
I guess when you were growing up or living in the city, you do see there are changes, but you don't really see it, the rapidness of it. When I left and I came back, usually I came back every year for a visit, but then because of work and life were kind of settled down in Australia, so I only came back, the last time I came back before March 2020 was 5-6 years ago, and maybe that's more or less the same time when you came here.
Yeah.
So then when I come back now, 6 years later, I was like, whoa, where did that landmark come from? Matsuri, where we are now, didn't exist, right? Because I don't remember there was Matsuri.
Let's not mention where I live on there. I'll cut that out.
I thought everybody knew.
No.
Yeah,
so just continue what you're saying, but just don't mention Matsuri.
Okay. So come back 6 years, everything changed so much. There's the landmark coming out of nowhere. There's so many restaurants, places to go. Saigon feel like an endless journey or adventure to explore.
It's just such an exciting time, coming from what for me is moving here. I really understood what that word developing meant. We don't tend to use the words like third world country and things like that. And Vietnam's definitely not a third world country, but it's developing, and being here, you're like watching it literally develop. Whereas we talk about countries like in the West where I'm from, I've developed, and you're like, there's not really much infrastructure gets built, not much changes. How many new buildings go up? Because everything was done long before I was born. So for me, being here is really exciting because you're like, wow, it's happening in front of your eyes.
Yeah, we are still a third level country. That's we classify as that.
Really? I thought it was changed.
It hasn't changed it. Officially, Vietnam is still a third level country.
Right.
But yes, we are a developing country, and we're developing very fast. Like you see, you can see it, you experience it very fast. I think we about maybe 10 years behind Thailand. That I only looked at Thailand because I like Thailand. I like the culture. It's closer to Vietnam than other country. But I think that Vietnam might pick up even faster.
Well, so I had this when I first moved here 6 years ago, was that, for example, like Korea, Vietnam's maybe 40, 50 years behind. But in 5 years' time, since I've been here 5, 6 years, it's now like 20 years behind. It's catching up so quickly. And so we have not had that comparison with Thailand, but that would make sense as well. But Vietnam is a country of, there's different speeds in Vietnam, because one thing, and I mentioned this on the podcast quite a lot recently, I often say Vietnam, but what I really mean is Saigon. Because what we're talking about is rapid development, this drastic change. We're talking about Saigon, whereas then if you go out there is still change in rural Vietnam, but not at the same speed, I would say. What do you think on that?
I would agree with you 100%, because Saigon is Vietnam for me or for you as well. Saigon go ahead of all the other city. Hanoi, you can see some changes too, but it's still at the political quarter head of the country. It's slower. It's to try to preserve the culture, and the rural areas and all the towns, they pretty much the same. You might see more houses because people doing better. They have money to build, brick house instead of staying in a coconut leaf houses like you used to see.
Yeah.
But in terms of establishments and all the cultural development or nightlife, definitely Saigon is the place. Saigon is ahead of everywhere.
Yeah. That's what I mean. It's not really Vietnam almost, right? It's just its own little different place. So how did you end up leaving Vietnam and traveling all around Europe, living all over Europe?
I always felt that I wanted to see the world. And I think the best way to experience other cultures and countries is to live there. So I started with a master degree in business, so like an MBA, which do international business. Because I thought living overseas in different countries, learn about business so that I can come back to Vietnam and do business, because Vietnam needs more business people, we need more money so that we can move from developing to develop. So that's why I thought I always have something in me of doing something for Vietnam.
Cool. And then, so where did you go and do your MBA?
Oh, yes. So I decided I chose Europe because of the culture. I'm fascinated about the culture in other countries there. So I did it in Germany, Spain, England, and France. You can choose. So from my master degree, we can choose to be in one country or 2 or 3 or 4. And I went for 4, of course.
What institution was this with?
So this was a very new back then, was one of the very rare master degree that you can do internationally. And I started with SRH, in English it's SRH, Berlin. And then they have that program that you can be an exchange student with other university. And then you pick the other university based on where they are. So I kind of handpicked my journey in Europe by picking, Berlin, and then Madrid, and Paris, and then London.
And what was it taught in English at each institution?
Everything in English, But I like the fact that they also encourage you to learn the local language too. I do speak German, so then I got to learn how to speak French and a bit of Spanish.
And how is your Spanish and your French and your German now?
German, I can still speak German, but French and Spanish, I understand more than I can speak, because when I moved to Australia, everything just sticks to English or Australian.
Well, I'm going to say, hold on a minute, I don't know. So, I'm a comedian as well, and I've been doing a joke recently about how Australians they've adapted the English language for their own purposes. We did a comedy show last week, and a whole bunch of the audience members didn't know that, like, in Australia, McDonald's is called Macca's.
Macca's?
And literally the sign says Macca's.
Yeah.
And I had to explain to the audience that there's a servo. So if anyone listening that doesn't know this, servo in Australia is
A petrol station.
petrol station, service station, servo.
Several.
Um,
Service station.
What's a bottle? Bottle?
The bottle.
Yeah.
Why do I know the bottle? I know the umbo.
What's the humble? Oh, the ambulance.
Yeah.
Ambulance. My sister worked for an ambulance.
Sunny, sunny. What are the sunnies?
Oh, your sunnies.
Your
Your sunglasses.
Yes.
Yeah. Like bottle, the bottle shop.
At the bottle or the bottle shop.
And it literally is the name of, like, it's on the side,
yeah.
bottle.
Yeah.
And then you have Steve-O, Dave-O.
Avo.
Al-
I still say avo now, and some people ask, "What do you mean avo?"
Afternoon. No, I forgot that one. No,
Yeah.
we didn't know.
We say avo pretty often. I mean, not we. I feel like Australian. I'm sorry, I'm not Australian. I'm Vietnamese. But yeah, Australians say avo a lot. Avo, yes.
Well, so I lived in Australia for 4 years, sorry, so that's why I was living, well, I travelled all over, but mostly lived in Melbourne.
Same.
Why
I
is that
love
where you live?
Melbourne. I love
Yeah.
Melbourne. I know the debate between Melbourne and Sydney, but Melbourne for me.
What? There's no debate.
Yeah.
It's just Melbourne. It's no debate at all.
But you know, they always a debate between which is the best city of Australia, and people say Sydney, and then other people say Melbourne.
Yeah.
And they list all the pro and con and try to win. I'm like, there's nothing to debate about. Melbourne won the most livable city of the world for 7 years.
Yeah, I know, right?
So then forget about Sydney. I mean, I love Sydney too.
Yeah.
Melbourne is better.
I was very kind of parochial when I was there. I was like, no, Melbourne's better. But I didn't really spend any time in Sydney. And then the first time I went to Sydney, and I had like a local take me out, and we hung out in cool places and saw more of Sydney. I was like, all right, I get up with it. It's definitely like, it's an amazing city. I mean, talking about Australia, it's all amazing, right? Now you're just like, what's even better? But I lived in Perth for a while as well, so that's one of my favourite places in the world. And nobody can understand me when I say it. Perth. I have to make it American. Perth. I have to change
That's
it.
so sweet. Even your face expression change,
Yeah, no, it's
become more American.
yeah, exactly. Well, any word with R in the middle, I have to change it. Burger, murder, duct tape.
What?
Can't even understand me, right? So how did you like life in Australia? Because I enjoyed it. I liked it a lot. I do make jokes about it as well, and I know this is true. Australians are racist. Like, they're just a fact. Like, their casual racism is shocking. Their casual sexism, and not all of them. There's plenty of like really decent Australians. I'm not like saying that they're all like that, but there are a lot of them, and it's shocking. And the amount of times you hear an Australian say like, "I'm not. This isn't meant to be racist," but then you know they're gonna say something racist. Like, okay, here we go. What is this? It's like, I'm not being sexist, but I'm like, I'm okay. You're about to say something really, really sexist right now. So how did you experience that as obviously someone who's not Australian and not white? Because that's the thing is what I noticed with Australia, they're anti-immigrant, but not if you're white. They're okay with like with British people coming over and things like this. When I lived there, I was just shocked at the treatment of like boat people and things like this. I was like, this is insane.
Yeah. When were you in Australia?
I got there 2007 and left 2011. So right at the kind of I think that was the start of them sending people to Christmas Island and Nauru and their treatment of these people fleeing persecution, war. And this massive country with so much space and so much room. And I mean, one of the most cringy things ever. Anyone who's listening to this is true. In Australia, they had bumper stickers and T-shirts saying "country's full."
Really?
Yep.
Oh, good that I haven't seen it. I didn't see it.
This country is far from full. It's the most desolate country in the world. This is how unironic it was. They were like, "Yeah, country's full, man."
Wow.
And you're like, wow. Yeah, so that is why I experienced some of this kind of casual racism, especially toward their own Indigenous people, when people would then start to denigrate the Indigenous people there. I would get so angry because it's like, you know, this country was stolen from them, right? Anyways, but my question was, so you as an immigrant or an expat, we'll talk about the differences in that later. How are your experiences of Australia in that sense? And then you can share the good experiences as well, because I don't want to. There are some unbelievable people in Australia, really forward-thinking, progressive people, but unfortunately, they often get drowned out by idiots.
I think 2007 to 2011 was before my time. I came over to Australia in 2013. I know it's only 2-3 years difference, and I live in Melbourne. And maybe also because of my environment and my network, I live more or less the same. Maybe I have my own bubble. I live more or less the same in Vietnam or overseas. I always have international friends. I work in international environments. So I experience less of the sexism or racism. Having said that, it doesn't mean that I didn't experience any, because like you say, I'm not white and I'm Asian. There's a lot of Asians in Melbourne, more than in Sydney and other cities. More Chinese, but people don't know that. For Australians, they look at Asian people, they're all the same, they're all Chinese. I work for a hotel chain, it's an American one, very international. We have people from different background and nationality, but I didn't notice it until I got to a higher level. When I became a manager, area regional manager, and I got to then travel and work in different resorts. So one time, let's just pick out one. I was answering the phone. A customer called in at the hotel and they asking for a special reservation, whatever it was. But I think he noticed my accent, that I'm not Australian, obviously. Then he asked to speak to the manager. So the person, the guest service agent is at the front desk already passed on to me as the manager. But then he noticed the accent, and that's when he asked, no, I actually wanted to talk to the manager. And I say, well, I'm actually the manager, so you can talk to me. Like, I can, accommodate your request if it's within our ability. But he just keep insisting, saying, no, I need to talk to the manager, really. Like, where are you from? So he just keep insisting on where are you from, you're not the manager. That's kind of like the first time when it really hit me that, racism also exists in Australia. I didn't expect that. Maybe I was naive. I was Euro. I was doing okay. I was having fun. I didn't really face that much of racism. So, and I thought as an English-speaking country, Australia for me is, they have more or less a British kind of feel. They definitely look up to like British, Great Britain, but they do want to be American. That's just my...
No. Absolutely.
Yeah, just my observation. And I feel like you have a lot of British in you, but you look up to America and you want to be like American. You try to copy everything. So then I thought, okay, well, English-speaking, Australian, Great Britain, England, and American, all of that together would make you a very open-minded country, if that Australia is the person. But then I realized, no, not 100%. And especially that situation happened when I was in Turkey. Yeah, so it's outside, more like a town thing. So that's where you meet more of the Australian, the Aussie slang for it is bullying. And that's when you meet those people and you realize, they're different from the people you meet in the city.
And I think that's maybe the point I'm making, is because I lived in Melbourne, met amazing people working hard for social justice and things like this. But for my job, I worked for charities doing fundraising. And so I would travel all over Australia to different towns, and especially rural towns. So I went to almost every rural town in Victoria, even some in New South Wales. And that's, where you then really just get that casual, just like, not proud to be racist, because I think also as well, like, there's a lot of ignorance. It's not like them being like I'm going to be racist. It's just kind of like this casual, like that example is just kind of like, that's what I meant, you know?
Maybe it's more like ignorant, like you say, because they don't know better. They never leave the country. They try.
Never left the town.
I mean,
Do you know I went to work in Tasmania for a couple of weeks, right?
yeah,
And we were working in Launceston, which is outside of Hobart.
yeah.
And I met this guy and he's like, oh, yeah, the big smoke. And I was like, oh, like Melbourne? He's like, no, Hobart. And he'd never left Launceston.
Oh wow.
So the remote rural you go in Australia and you do meet those kind of people.
But then, as a white person, and I wouldn't expect you to see any racism.
Well, it's more sometimes because they're overconfident that they think they can say casually racist things in front of you. But I also had colleagues that I worked with that were of different international backgrounds and things like this, so you would kind of see it in that way. Well, I guess it's also here, I'm just remembering, so I worked for like the Red Cross, Amnesty International, Oxfam, Australia, things like this. So I worked for these international charities. So you would often hear things like, oh, we got to help our own people first. That was like a really common thing, got to help. And there's some argument to that. I also worked for Australian charities where they're trying to feed kids breakfast. Oh, that was the thing for the Red Cross. So for some people, you just can't win. And we can get into your charity journey soon. So because I worked in charities for most of my life, sometimes you just can't win. So it's like, we're with the Red Cross and like, oh, we got to help people in Australia. Yeah, cool. We're actually doing a breakfast club. So we give kids breakfast that come from families that can't afford it. Why can't we afford it? Why do they spend all the money on cigarettes and alcohol? Should we give? So it's just like they've got something ready no matter what you say. But, so that's what I'm saying. I met some unbelievable people that really wanted to help people. But I also met people that were like, no, I'm not helping another country, you know.
Well, I didn't do much charity work in Australia, but simply because I was in a situation where I actually needed help as an immigrant, trying to live in the country, find work, and so I did not work in charity, and I didn't see that. But myself experienced that casual racism, even sexism, like you say, yeah.
Yeah, I think that sexism is worse than the racism.
I felt a lot of time invisible in the conversation where I'm the only female there, and I feel like, oh, even when I speak with a nod and that's it, just acknowledge, but wouldn't count in my opinion. Just basically because I'm female and also because I'm Asian.
Well, I don't want to say any names, but someone I know very well who lives in Australia recently had, can't remember exactly what it was. I think it was a promotion or an award. And so it got posted on, LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And, she was getting messages of congratulations and whatnot. And then one guy messaged, and the only real comment was about how beautiful she looked in the picture. Yeah, right. I know. And and she's very good. She's very, she does amazing work to empower women's rights in the workplace. She's a kind of trailblazer in her industry. And so, she messaged them back and used that as a kind of teaching opportunity to be like, this is not appropriate. Like, I've never met you before. Why are you commenting on my appearance? You should be commenting on my work. And I think the guy just ignored it or blocked. No, he blocked her. That's right. I'm pretty sure he immediately blocked her instead of responding. And that happens in all countries, not just Australia, but that's an example. But I want to give you a funny story quickly before we move on. I don't think this makes me a casual racist, okay? It just makes me dumb. Okay. So doing the fundraising, so I used to do street fundraising and door to door as well. So going door to door, I think it was in Newcastle at the time, rural and like not the town centre, in the kind of satellite suburbs of Newcastle, going door to door. And you'll know in Australia as well that they have screen doors, right? Right, so to let the air into hot country, blah, 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 and then they have the main door. So knock the door, the door open, but the screen door was still there and couldn't see. And then this person with a high-pitched voice, small, from what I could see, entered the door. I was like, oh, can I speak to your dad? And then she opened the screen door and then this big Aussie bloke came up, stubby shorts and grey beard. And it was this tiny little Asian woman. I don't know, Thai or Cambodian, I didn't ask, I couldn't even see the person. It was just I heard the voice, but I've never been so embarrassed because she brought her husband back and I'd asked for her dad.
That was a long word, Chris.
That was pretty embarrassing.
But I mean, everyone would kind of make that mistake, right?
Yeah.
I probably in that situation, I might make the same mistake. Like
It was purely based on the sound. No, I couldn't even see the person, but it was definitely.
and I think racism, sexism, or ignorance coming from what we know, coming from the knowledge what we have. We know what we know. We don't know what we don't know. So we would make assumptions, or we would make a judgment based on what we know. And if we the judgment turn out to be wrong, then it's just an assumption, right? But is it right? Then it was a right judgment. You know. So
Thank you.
that's make you feel better and make some embarrassing mistakes.
So let's move on then. So when you left Australia, you were in Australia for how long then?
7 years.
7 years, and working in the hospitality industry.
Not the whole time, but yeah, most of the time.
So you got to see a lot of the country.
Yes. I travel around for work because it's hospitality and the hotel chains, they have resorts and hotels everywhere. I was actually responsible for Victoria and Tasmania. So I got to see Tasmania too.
Very similar to Scotland. It's a beautiful place.
Yeah. Never been to Scotland.
Looks like Tasmania.
Okay. So now I can take one more.
Say you've been, you can just say you've been. It's all right. But then, so you came back to Vietnam and then just on a visit, as you said. What kind of philanthropic work had you been doing before then?
So I did on a personal level, like I mentioned, when growing up, I think Vietnam is a very philanthropic country. And all of us, each of the Vietnamese person were always willing to do charity, always, or want to give something, help someone. But then it not to the professional level. Like we need to look at it more seriously instead of just helping because we can help. So then when I was even before I left Vietnam, when I was working here in a travel company, I was trying to do some charity work and I asked the company to get involved. So I was on also like executive managers at kind of high level. And I thought my voice would, make a difference. And I said, hey, I've been doing a lot of charity on my own with my friends. What about the company joining? And then you can, donate some money, or we can just ask the employee to donate and just gather people and do a trip. And the answer was no. I don't remember what it was. We don't have the time or we don't have the resources. And then I did it myself with the people from the company, but not as the company. But thinking back, it was their loss. Because what I'm doing now is to then give the company a chance to then do good, but they don't have to lose so much time or money or resources because people in the company are willing to contribute. So then that was what happened before Australia. In Australia, same. Also on the personal level, also help other people what I can. I was the event manager for a Women Federation for World Peace. And what we did was to raise money, organizing peace events, and raise money for women and children in the Pacific Islands. They have schools and they teach women how to swim, do things, and then microcredit, do their own little business things, and then help the kids to go to school. So back with the hotel business, I was there, also a manager. I also try and say, hey, maybe we could do something. Maybe we could do like a free hug, simple thing. It doesn't cost money. Or create a runs and then raise money for Cancer Council Victoria. It doesn't have to be our country. It doesn't have to be other island. It can be this country. I don't mind helping because there are people who need help everywhere in the world, even in a developed country. There are homeless people everywhere in Melbourne. I'm sure you noticed, like I was surprised to see so many homeless people. And I didn't get an agreement with the hotel to do more charity with denim, same reaction that I got, just like in Vietnam. So then I said, okay, then I'll just move on and do other things. But then somehow see something that I want to do. I want to be part of the company or business that also think of other people and not just thinking of business and the bottom line.
No, that's what my job was here for a while in Saigon. Unfortunately, I lost my job because of COVID So the pandemic hit and they had to make cuts. And so it's really unfortunate because they were doing amazing work, helping give education to children. And then they've lost that part of it. And it's just another problem of the pandemic, right? So you then came to Vietnam in March 2020, like you said. You were visiting friends and family?
Yes. Actually visiting the country and planning then to move on from Australia, actually. So I will just stop by home for a visit and then planning to go to Canada.
Okay. Right. And was that already set up?
So I was a little bit of an adventurous as well. And I'm confident I can just move to the country and just find my way, or like just what I did in Australia. So I would just like pick up everything, leave everything, go home for a visit, and then go to Canada. But it didn't happen.
So what date did you get back to, what date did you arrive in Vietnam?
Oh, I remember exactly, the 18th of March, 2020.
So we left Vietnam on March 10th to go to New Zealand for a wedding. Then we were meant to go to America for a wedding, and then back to Vietnam for a wedding. We were going to be 3 Saturdays, 3 weeks, 3 weddings, 3 continents.
Wow.
We planned for a year for it. We had to leave New Zealand the day before the wedding. The American wedding was postponed for a year. We still didn't get to go to it. And the wedding in Vietnam was postponed about 6 months. We got to go to it, but all of the groom's family couldn't come because, borders were still closed. So we arrived back on March 20th, 2 days after.
Yeah.
And because we had a foreign passport, we got immediately put in government quarantine. Did you get to just walk in, right?
Nothing happened.
Yeah.
I actually came in with a partner, expat right now, but with a partner that time. He's a foreigner, but nothing happened to us. We was like, why everything is so chill and casual here? Like Vietnam was still ready.
It was changing day by day by day. And so fortunately, because when we landed, they wanted to send us back to Australia, even though we'd come from New Zealand, because they just saw we'd bolded in Australia. And they were like, oh, you need to go back. We can't come in. And we're like, no, we live here. Like, we have a visa. We have a life here. We have jobs here. There's a whole podcast episode about it. People can go listen to it. But thankfully, we got in and we spent 17 days in government quarantine with no mattress, no aircon, no pillow, no booze.
No booze.
No booze.
Very important.
17 days. But the good thing was there was only 3 of us in the room. It was my wife and I, and then the guest who was just on the last episode of the podcast. We became close friends, and we've been close friends ever since, Anastasia. And the last episode that just came out, she just returned from Ukraine.
Oh, wow.
She went back to Ukraine for the first time in 2 years, 2.5 years, and then 5 days after she arrived, war broke out. So thankfully, her and her mum have made it back safely. So that was the last. So that's it. That was my journey, my story of how I got back. So you came in on the 18th, and then at what point? By the 20th, then borders were closed.
Well, on the same day, we kind of realized that in Vietnam something is starting as well. The next day, we were staying in like an Airbnb bed and breakfast, and the local authority coming up on the door saying, now we're gonna have to like check on you every day just to make sure that we were not in quarantine or anything, but just because we flew back.
Like testing you every day.
Yeah, come and check on temperature, not testing.
Right.
Back then, the testing was not really like
That's right. Yeah.
which is not
All about the temperature.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they were coming every morning, 7 a.m. to check the temperature and say that wherever you go, be careful, blah, blah. But then it's getting more and more serious. And at some point, they call it and say, stay in, do not go anywhere. That's where, get into social distancing point where the vehicle go around with the loudspeaker, with the megaphone.
Yeah.
Is
that what it was saying?
Yeah.
I think when that was going on, I was already stuck in quarantine.
Oh, yeah, that 17 day you were not.
That's it. Yeah. Well, one of the things we'd heard about, and I don't know if you saw this, but we'd heard about kind of like an anti-foreigner sentiment, because there was this perception that foreigners had brought in COVID, which was not true because it was returning Vietnamese that were bringing the COVID back. But so I remember being in quarantine and we were nervous about getting out because we didn't really know what we were walking into. And we'd seen things on Facebook about how foreigners had gone to, Vinmar and they refused entry, even though they were letting in Vietnamese people, or they'd been like abused and yelled at by people. And so we were like, what are we getting out to? So did you see any of that during that period, or you were just mostly at home anyway?
I did see a little bit of the not really anti-foreigner, but I think Vietnamese people were afraid. They're always afraid of what they don't know. They thought that it's come from foreigner because the virus must be from overseas, right? It's not here. But then, they didn't realize because of the Vietnamese returning. What I saw was that people, instead of jumping into the foreigner like before, that's my experience before. I know that Vietnamese people are very hospitable. They like foreigners and they will come to you and don't even respect your privacy because they don't know. We don't have that. We're not taught that we respect the privacy here. People live here three generations under the same roof, the small alley with hundreds of households. So of course they're not familiar with the concept of giving your privacy. This is your family, this is your friends, this is your family close here. So they come and they touch you because you probably would get that back then too, I assume. Because you're so well-known. You look so different.
I've never really had that, strangely. But I know lots of people who have. I personally have never really had that. They take off a vibe, like, don't come.
Yeah. They would touch your hair if you have like a fluffy
I heard this from
blonde hair, blue eye, and you come, oh, isn't it so pretty and touch you because you're so white like a princess?
The only thing I ever got one time in D4 was someone was like touching my nose and saying I had a long nose.
But I mean, why would you touch someone? No, you can make the comment, but do not touch people.
Yeah. That's the only time it ever happened. But then there was someone, like a Vietnamese person with them who could speak a little bit of English. And they're like, no, she said you've got a really nice nose. But she's like, long nose.
Yeah.
That's the only time that.
Yeah, so I didn't see that anymore. I see that people, when they see foreigners,
stand out for you.
Yeah, they would like keep the distance. Or they also ask me, some people ask me, so where is he come from? When did he arrive in Vietnam? I'm like, he's with me. He's cool. I vouch for him.
And I think that was a big part of it as well, right? It was more questioning, like, about where people were from and what they are. Yeah.
So then I sometimes just to get away to go on with our trouble, I would say, you live here, but we live here. Even me, I didn't even want to say that. I just came because I know that I didn't have the virus. I know that, but I know people here too. I know they would be afraid. They would get paranoid, and we saw that. We saw the paranoid over the lockdown and the social distancing, right? The freak out and everything.
Well, let's move on from that. We like to keep the COVID chat to a minimum. So let's go on. So you got stuck here, like many people. How did you then turn that into this wonderful thing that's now become the Happievent and the social ChangeMakers?
Yeah. So the Happievent is something that I started back in Melbourne before I left. So I stopped working for the hotel. And I thought, what is the one thing that I like doing? I like people. I'm a people person, very, very extroverted. And I got the energy for people. I like to bring people together. And if I could do that to help other people, perfect. So I started with my own event business called the Happievent. I started to do with what I like best. Dancing, happy, party, and then become a festival of something more cultural. South of Africa festival, Latin festival. And then there's the reason why we left Australia and moving on to Canada. But I'm not getting into that, more like a personal reason. But we came to Vietnam that when getting stuck here and seeing people struggle, Vietnam being a developed country, third level country, we don't have the resources. The government didn't know what to do. So who suffer from all of that? The people on the street. The people in the little alley that got quarantined because one person got COVID. Then everyone got quarantined. They didn't get to go to supermarkets to just get food. Even the basic needs of food and feeding your family is becoming impossible. So then I thought, I have the resources and I have the network, and somehow I was still able to go out and do other things. So I decided I want to do some events here. Started to help people, and I started with Dance for Kindness, flash mob. Just something that I like dancing, but then help other people, get people to join in. We raise money, and we use that money to help people. That's what before the pandemic. So that's what for the Slurp Speaking Essential. That was the first year. And then the year later, 2020, when COVID started, 2021 was more like then, that's when I started. January 2021, I decided I want to do it more seriously. I joined in Women Empowerment Club, which is the an initiative that funded by the US Consulate. And they taught Vietnamese women, young Vietnamese women, to be more conscious and helping other, more giving back, do more community work, and empowering them at the same time to be more confident and do what they want. So from that, I joined in more to then use my my knowledge and my experience in doing events and living overseas to then empowering other women. That's what my intention of joining the agenda, the programs. But after that, I was more or less inspired from the work that we all do, part of that program. So I decided, so to ChangeMaker, it's something that I should do for myself instead of for other people. So it's my baby that it makes me happy first before it can help other people. So right after we did the Pink Night, that was my project with the Women Commons Club to help raise funds for Breast Cancer Network Vietnam. Right after that, it was the 10th of January, was the day of the event, I still remember, at Hard Rock Cafe. Sadly not here anymore, Hard Rock Cafe, off north. 10 days later, I decided, so ChangeMaker, and I launched the event on the 22nd of January. And just literally just an idea of, I launched an event, networking, asked people to come in and throw out the idea of, let's build a network of people who wanted to do good, people who were interested in social impact, creating a hub, creating a group. And I got really good response, and people came to the event and they say, it's a good idea. There is definitely potential to do something like that. There are people who are doing good already in the city, and there are a lot of organizations, but they need someone or a network to then connect everyone. And I think I'm good with that. I think I'm good with connecting people. So that's how it started.
That's awesome. And then, so how's it going now?
We're 1 year young, like more than 1 year now. We just had our anniversary back in January. And we have a structure, step by step we learn. At the beginning, we're just networking, all this, nothing else. Just once a month, come together, introduce some people, connect some people. From that, it grew into, now we have a team, everybody volunteer. We have a team of about 12 people volunteering. We have core people who work on, every month we have a structure. Like, I'm really proud of what we achieved so far. We would have a social impact networking. That's the original idea. On top of that, we have social ChangeMakers Academy, focused in education, related to personal development and soft skills that would help with social impact. So we did purpose in life, meaning like done by Modi and H2C, the friends from the other podcast. And we're gonna do a sign language workshop for people to learn. Then you can communicate with another community that actually exists in the city or in the country that sometimes we might forget about them, And so then we also do charity every month, and we have a sustainability market, which is the last one just happened over the last weekend just now, which focus then on promotes the reduce, reuse, recycles and environment. So yeah, so we have everything going quite steadily.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, well done.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, I don't get to come to events because I'm always putting my own on.
I know.
It's so difficult. I'm sure you're the same. You probably get invited to stuff all the time. You're like, I just can't go.
Yeah.
It's so bad. And even as well with the amount of people that here in Saigon alone, never been around the world, creating podcasts or YouTube channels. And you're like, I just can't watch it all. And at the same time, make my own, edit my own, publish my own. It gets really, really difficult. And it's like you want to listen to it and you want to support people, but I think it's so difficult if you're already doing your own thing. But I'll hopefully be at an event soon.
That's okay.
What is your next event?
So then next month there'll be we'll prepare for a visit to School of Hope in Vietnam. So with concern to visit the kids. That's the school that teach deaf and mute kids. And they also give sponsorship so the kids don't have to pay for their tuitions, and they can stay while the parents at work, and they only go home in the afternoon, like after the whole day is school. So we'll come and play with them. That's one of the things that we were doing. And then again with the market, the charity market, and the social impact networking, the same thing. But what exciting coming up is that from May, we're gonna have our office. I'm very excited about it.
Moving offline into the real world.
Yeah, so we've been doing events, we've been co-working from different places, different venues. And we started with a charity flea market because we got people donated things to us and we can sell all the donations to then raise some money in our activations. You don't always ask people for money. It's, it's a difficult town. Not everybody has money to then help all the time. So we try different ways to then raise money. And one of the ways is to then people can donate stuff when they leave the country. And then we sell them, we have the money and we then help someone who needs. And we're going to set up our charity shop. Instead of online, now it's going to be offline at the office. So that's very exciting.
Wait, congratulations.
Thank you.
May, which is very, very soon, right?
Yeah. So, I already signed the contract. I already have the key of the house. I've been so busy with the event over the weekend. So I literally just dump all the boxes into the house, but I haven't set up or started anything. So I'll start this week. This week.
All right, well, we've got to been finished because you've got to go. So I'll ask you. You got to unpack. I'll ask you the final questions then. Then we ask everyone at the end of season 8. Yeah, we'll finish up. I'll do that again. Well, we better finish up and let you go on because you've obviously got so much to do. So we're going to finish with the final questions that we ask everyone at the end of season 8. If you could go anywhere in Vietnam for a week, you're going to stay there for a whole week. Where would you go?
Nha Trang.
Right.
I thought of Phu Quoc, but I like Nha Trang more. Simply because you have beach and the city in one place. With Nha Trang, you get to go to the night market, take out a bike, or the scooter, or a bicycle, whichever you want. You can just go to the beach or you go to the bookstore, but you have the city life there. But you also can just take a scooter and go a bit further, and it deserves it just like on an island.
Mm-hmm. Or
if you really want an island, you can cross over and go to other islands around Nha Trang. So yeah, I would say Nha Trang for the whole week.
Yeah, I like Nha Trang as well. And I'd go on a bike and got out to like Docklet Beach, if you ever heard of Docklet Beach, and there's some like nice waterfalls out there. And...
We say in Vietnamese, Docklet.
Docklet, sorry, Docklet.
No, I'm not correcting you.
No, you are correcting me, but you should correct me. Okay. Yeah. I'm trying to remember how it's spelled, but
yeah, D-O-C.
What?
L-E-T. So I understand it, Docklet in English. In the sound, yeah, Docklet. It's a difficult word. I do like your questions about the immigrant and expat. A lot of people kind of mix up both those two, huh?
Yeah. All right. So what advice would you give to a tourist coming to Vietnam? Because tourists are back.
Exciting. Tourists are back. The elephant pants are back. I like that joke.
Just a reference there, Rosie is making a posting on Facebook a few weeks ago that I saw someone with elephant pants on, which I have not seen anyone with elephant pants on in Vietnam for like pretty much 2.5 years. And I was like, it's a tourist.
Yeah.
You know, well, there's negatives of tourists coming back in elephant pants, so definitely one of them. But what advice would you give to a tourist coming to Vietnam?
2 things. First of all, be open-minded. The country is full of different things that you might not expect, like the crazy traffic, the rainy season, and raining all day and then flooding everywhere. People try to harass you to sell things. Some places, in some market, you have to bargain. But when you learn your way and you know there's a lot of beautiful thing, beautiful treat for you, I think you will love it. Just be open-minded and don't expect something similar like home. Just be open-minded. And the second thing, be kind. People don't speak English as well as in other countries, but Vietnamese people are very hospitable, very friendly, and they love foreigners. So use that, take advantage of that. Just be kind to them because they will be kind to you.
I've seen examples, not in a long time, but when I first came here, especially if you'll be hanging around the tourist areas, of people being unkind, and it's just like, look, chill out. Like, why you get so angry at this person? Like, they don't speak English or they don't speak English well. Like, just relax. Like, but yeah, some people get like that, right? Now, what advice would you give to someone who wants to live in Vietnam, who wants to move to Vietnam?
Oh, advice. Do your research. Know what to expect. I know some friends who came here They did the research, but not thoroughly enough. And they thought that Vietnam would be a completely different country. So I say, talk with the locals, go online, join some Facebook group. Facebook is a thing in Vietnam. Everything you want to know, it's on Facebook. That's my advice for everyone listening. Join all the expat and expat groups in Vietnam or in Saigon, whichever city that you go, there will be a group for it. And then learn what are the situations so that you can be prepared. And learn the good things, the bad things, but don't be thrown off by the bad things. Just to be prepared and know that that's normal. It's okay. It's happened the same in other countries too.
I have to make a warning here. Okay, if you're listening to this and you're thinking of moving to Vietnam, and Rosie says get on the Facebook groups, I have to warn you, most of the expat groups here are toxic.
Oh.
Did you know this?
Well, I guess because
Expats isn't, which you've mentioned Fexpat. So if you're a female, you can join the female expats and locals group, which is a good resource for females, for safe space, for women to be able to ask questions that maybe they wouldn't want to ask in a normal group. But some of the main expat groups here are a toxic swill of horrible people, and simple questions just get the most horrible answers. So I'm just warning anyone. Be prepared that if you ask a simple question like, where's the best place to live? You're going to get called a racist or something like that. Or, no, I mean, that's maybe stupid, but yeah, you get like stupid answers. People will get angry that you don't know the answer. Or so just maybe read before you post. It's probably a good idea. And then there are some non-troll expat groups as well. So look up the non-troll expat groups.
That's a good advice. I do agree some of them can be a bit negative. But I'm a very positive person. I always look at the positive side, and I believe that there are always people who then would speak up and say, yo, just chill out. That person just asked something because he or she doesn't know. You live in the country, so you can just help.
Well, no, that doesn't happen.
It does happen.
Well, the next person will then say something even worse than the person before, and it gets like, it's a toxic swirl of humanity. It's not a good place.
I did see some people speak up against the person who troll other people. But then again, I don't use the Facebook group so much to live with it, but it more or less, I think it's the first for you, like the first way for you to get a feel. Don't listen to all the experts say, more to get information.
Yeah.
As you get the facts, you know.
Well, what you should do is listen to a Vietnam podcast, join my Facebook group, which is 7 Million Army, but we don't post really stuff about living here. We just post funny stuff and podcast stuff. But join that, join our community, and we'll welcome you with open arms. Now, the next question related to this is, what is the difference for you between an expat and an immigrant?
That's a very interesting question. When I saw that, I'm like, oh, I didn't think of that before. But I believe, or in my opinion, an expat is someone who gets a job to work in another country. So they will be in the country for a limited time, I think. Like it's not permanently. But immigrant is someone who goes to another country with intention to live there permanently. So they would be more open-minded to then adapt, to go with the local ways and learn how to live a local way. Expat might have their bubble to then stick to. We would do exactly the same because we only live here a short time. We don't need to be exactly the same like the local, which rightfully so, you know, like you don't have to. But that's the differences that I see.
It's really simple. And I agree completely. And most people that have come on the podcast have answered almost the exact same. But talking about these toxic expat groups, there's a lot of people that in this city, I don't know about other cities, a lot of people in this city, they love to virtue signal. You know what I mean by that? They love to show off how virtuous they are, you know, how right they are, how righteous they are, you know. So I live local, I don't live in Tam Bien, I only eat Vietnamese food, I only drink Rudel and Tiger, I won't drink craft beer, you know, like I'm not an expat, I'm an immigrant, or, you know, and then people, and this comes, you know, I think mostly from the Western world. The word immigrant has been demonized, right, in America especially, obviously. But at its heart, that's all it means, exactly what you said. And so this is the thing, here in Saigon, there's a lot of people, mostly expats themselves, don't like to use that word expat, or they think it's something like a privileged word, like we're privileged, if you call yourself an expat, you think of you as being better than other people, or you're you're acting like you're privileged. And so that frustrates me because I think they're just virtue signaling to try and show like how fortuitous they are. When in reality is we are expats by definition because one, there's no pathway to residency here in Vietnam unless you marry a local. There's no pathway here to get a visa forever. So we're all expats unless you're not an expat. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So that's my take. That's why I'm asking that question, because of these toxic Facebook groups. Yeah, I think it has come from that. I think that's where the question came from. All right, final question. My favorite question I've ever asked on a Vietnam podcast. If Vietnam was a country, how would you describe it?
I like this.
Oh, sorry, I fucked that up. I said if Vietnam was a country.
Oh.
If Vietnam was a person. Vietnam is a country. If Vietnam was a person, how would you describe it?
I believe Vietnam's would be a woman. I believe a lot of people would say so. She is very moody because here it's rain and then it's sun, it's so warm, and then it rain in the next minute. She appeared to be moody, put it that way to be more accurate. She appeared to be moody, but if you know her, then she can be very predictable. You know exactly when it's going to rain, you know exactly when it's going to be hot. So the second comment would be, as a woman, Vietnam is complex, complicated, yet very simple. When you understand her complexity, then you love her.
Love that. Fantastic. Yeah, nearly everyone had said a woman.
Nobody's saying men.
No, I don't think one person has said a man.
Do you think Vietnam is a woman?
Well, I do now because I've had so many people say it.
Okay,
but it makes sense to. I could see it as a woman. Yeah.
Okay, skip other people. What other people think. If I ask you the same question and just skip everything what I just say and other people say to you, what do you think?
Well, I'm biased now because I've held I've had 8 different answers. I can't just take them out of my head. Like, because in my head is one of my favorite ones. They said, "Oh, she'd be a woman. It should be a spicy woman."
Spicy.
That was a great one as well. And I like that one. Complex but simple. Unpredictable or predictable.
Moody, but
as well. But so my thing as well, I think if let's just say she's a woman, right? I don't think it would be a man. Because Vietnam is I think very matriarchal. There's definitely the patriarchy here as well, but the women run this country, right? And I see that. And I even have heard that from the man goes out and works, but he comes home and gives all his money to the woman and she runs the household. You're nodding like that. That's correct, right? So, and then from what I've seen, so the one company that I've worked here for, the CEO, the director of HR, every person in a senior position was a woman.
Nice. I like that.
Lower level, not so much, and there's some issues there that they need to get some more women into the lower level management. But the upper level management, the top of the chain, was all women. And all I see here is people like yourself, like strong women. And that would be, for me, I guess, for Vietnam, it's just a really strong woman, I think, make up the backbone of all Vietnam,
I had a talk recently with Michael, a friend of mine who is the fellow of English and language for the American Center of the U.S. Consulate. And we had to talk about women empowerment for March to close up the month of women empowerment. And he also asked me about Vietnam and Vietnamese women. And I also, we discussed about Vietnam is actually very like a woman-run country. Women's way more stronger and way more CEO than you see in other countries. And also, not a lot of people know, but Vietnam used to be, we used to have what is the word again? Not the patriarchy, the other matriarchy system all the way back.
Yeah.
And then it shifted somehow to patriarchy. So we actually, a woman-led country, so to say.
Yeah, and you can I think I'd had that before, and you can see that. Yeah. Women in positions of power everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah. It's incredible. So yeah, no, awesome. Well, Rosie, thank you so much. It's amazing to share your story. There was I won't say who, but there was a Vietnamese VQ expat woman who's doing amazing things here, and I asked her to be on the podcast, and she turned me down, and that's fine. She said she didn't want to talk. She's not a talker, and that's fine. But I was like, she's like, you can find someone else. And I was like, no, I want to share stories. I want to share stories of women that are doing amazing things here, and she liked that. She still didn't say yes, but Maybe one day she'll come on. But yeah, there's so many amazing women here doing some incredible things. So it's amazing to hear what you're doing. So before we finish, tell people listening, where can they find more about the Happievent Social Changemakers? How can they help? What can they do to support you, and where can they find you?
So the Happievent and Social Changemaker, we are on Facebook. Like I mentioned, everything is on Facebook in Vietnam. We also on LinkedIn, on Instagram, so on social media basically. People can join supporting by going to the events, going to all the Social Changemaker activity, what we do. You can also donate money or clothes or anything that you want to donate to our shop, which will be set up this week. Or join us and volunteer. You can also join a volunteer team too.
Awesome. And we'll put all the links in the show notes for the Happievent and Social Changemakers. So go there, click them, and connect with Rosie and her amazing team. Well, Rosie, thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Nat, for having me. I have a great time chatting with you.
Awesome. Cheers.
Cheers.
Done.
Yeah. So you would have to edit it, huh? Get over it. We didn't do one take.
No, yeah, I'll edit a little bit. I actually have someone who's doing editing for me now.
That's cool.
Yeah. How long did we go for?
Was it an hour?
Oh, an hour and 5